So
Okay,
here we are on our final, we're here on our final pilot, which has gone so well so far. So there'll be more people, I'm sure, coming in, but I think it's great to see that the regulars are here, which would suggest that it's been thoroughly informative and enjoyable. So long may this one reign. Hey, Linford. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. So as I said, last week we talked about Pablo Fang, Mary Seacole, Madam C.J. Walker, the Hall brothers, and T. Ras McConan. And we went through quite a lot of information about these people and what they did. And we also had a chat at the end about what we can learn from some of these people, if not all of them. So this week, as you can see, we did quite a lot last week. I'm still going through. Right. So are there any questions relating to last week? No, if there are no questions. Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Sweeney. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? It feels like
sorry,
it was
2 weeks ago, not last week, 2 weeks ago.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. I still
just
wasn't quite sure what the red plaque stood for, and I completely forgot to research it. Were you able to glean any information on that at all?
I didn't. What I know is that I think actually, yeah, that's something I'll check out. I'm not certain, but I know some people give a red plaque, like the Fire Brigade, for instance, gave a red plaque to Arthur Robertson, who was a fighter during the Second World War. And they gave him a red plaque whilst he was given a blue plaque by the Black community. So I'm not exactly certain. I think they mean something similar. It just depends on who gives them.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
So I will check that out. I did say that last week and I didn't. So if you remind me later. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to first of all start looking at some, you remember Madam C.J. Walker? We said she was the first Black self-made millionaire. In reality, I was holding back a little to show you that this lady was the first Black female millionaire in the United States. And she actually came before Madam C.J. Walker. And the funny thing is, Madam C.J. Walker is the one who's well known. She is not well known. And Madam C.J. Walker worked under her wings. She worked for her at one point. And then she went off to do her own thing. So just a little bit about Annie Malone. She was one of America's first and most prominent African-American business women. Founded and developed a cosmetic business for Black women. Just 1 second. Just trying to move some of this out the way so I can see the screen myself. She developed a chemical that could straighten Black women's hair without causing damage. This is the lady who developed that product that could straighten Black women's hair without causing damage. And she established this college called Poro College to teach Black cosmetology. She created jobs for 75,000 women around the world. This is around 1920, you know. She created jobs for 75,000 women around the world, and it was reported that her assets were in 1920 were $14 million, which in today's money would be $167 million. That's one Black woman. And interestingly enough, she's coming from slavery. Her parents were enslaved. She then established and built the first international industry, inventing, manufacturing, and selling cosmetic and hair care products for Black women. She served as a formative mentor to Madam Walker, C.J. Walker, as well as her employer. By 1914, she had reached millionaire status while Walker was working hard to get her business off the ground in Indianapolis. Her headquarters were in St. Louis, which is New Orleans. No, where's St. Louis? Is that New Orleans?
No.
I think so. I'm trying to remember, or is it Louisiana? Anyway, she occupied a full city block. Her headquarters occupied a full city block. In America, a city block is huge. The musician Chuck Berry graduated from her college in 1952, along with his two sisters. Her HQ, as I said, which occupied a full city block, housed a 500-seat auditorium, a gymnasium, a dining hall, bakery, chapel, and rooftop greenhouses for growing herbs for her products and fruits and vegetables to feed her students. The rest of the complex housed her laboratories, mail rooms, shipping depot, and the factory that produced her large and growing product line. This is a look at some of her products, you know, and they all came under the brand name Poro. She created the first team of carefully trained women. She created the first team of carefully trained and commissioned professional women decades before Avon, the Avon model came along. So literally, she was there long before Avon. And her team did something similar. They went into people's homes. They were professionally trained and they demonstrated the products and people bought from them. She also covered areas like North and South America, Canada, Africa, parts of Africa, and also the Philippines. And I said she trained and dispersed some 75,000 agents. This is where Madam C.J. Walker got the idea from. She also established beauty schools in 32 US cities. She was philanthropic and far less conspicuous in her spending, lifestyle, and personal promotion. However, she was one of the first Americans, not the first Black Americans, one of the first Americans to own a Rolls Royce. She, along with Madam C.J. Walker, were poorly educated daughters of enslaved people. And they founded highly successful and influential industries. No white woman or Black man ever came close to achieving such a feat at that time, which is in the early 1900s. So, any comments relating to Annie Malone?
Just wow. Amazing. Ooh.
Can you imagine doing this during a time of Jim Crow? She was doing this during the time when they were lynching Black people, and they, by 1920, they were burning down Black Wall Street and many other Black townships.
Yes, that's right.
And she existed at that time.
And having so many employees as well. That's amazing.
Yep. Right, the next person I'm going to tell you about is...
on just for a moment, I think someone's going to say say something.
Yeah, I was just going to comment and to say it'd be interesting to know how she overcame those obstacles. Do you know what I mean? To be able to create such a business at that time, knowing in the backdrop of all those other things that was going on.
And so successful.
Yep. And you will find that there are quite a few Black people who overcame those obstacles. The next one I'm going to look at also was Frederick Pattison. He was the first African-American to manufacture cars. Were you aware there was a Black man who manufactures cars in America?
No, not at all. Interesting.
Frederick Pattison and Charles Richard Pattison. Frederick was the first African-American to manufacture a car. His father was Charles Richard Pattison, And his father co-founded the carriage business C.R. Pattison and Son Company, and eventually bought out his 20-year partner, J.P. Lowe, who was a white man. He later converted his business to the Greenfield Bus Body Company. After his father's death, Frederick Pattison developed the Pattison Greenfield car and was in direct competition with Henry Ford's Model T. Who's heard about Henry Ford's Model T? Everybody is about the Model T and the production line and all of that. This guy was in competition with him at that time. And he was a black man. So if you want to know more about him, there is actually a book written called the C.R. Pattison and Son Company, Black Pioneers in the Vehicle Building, 1865 to 1939. Yeah. Yes.
Is it possible for that to be placed in the chat, please? Is it possible, Angela?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Information about the men.
Yes. Yep.
I haven't got.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I haven't got the actual. Actually, I'm trying to work out how I can place that in the chat.
If you just copy and paste it, you'll be able to do. But to be able to, but to be honest as well, just to say that this is being recorded.
Okay.
Oh yes, that's true.
Oh yes, of course.
And it'll be sent to all of us. I'll be sending it out to all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes life a lot easier. Yeah, for me. Right. So we've looked at two people at the moment. Let's look at another group of people. This is Charles Clinton Spalding, Aaron McDuffie Moore, and John Merrick. They co-founded the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company in 1898.
Recording in progress.
Yes. And as you can see, I'm sorry. I'm getting an echo at the moment. I'm just wondering.
Okay, but I'm okay this side.
Yeah, okay, it's gone.
Okay.
It was there before, but it's gone now.
Okay.
They co-founded the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company in 1898. It is the oldest and largest African-American life insurance company in the United States. Spalding, before they came together, Spalding himself was general manager of a grocery company. Moore was a practicing physician, and Merrick was an entrepreneur with barbershops across Durham. Okay, that's Durham in the US. At the time, Durham was referred to as the Black Wall Street, notably for the economic successes Blacks were seeing through business. So there were quite a lot of Black Wall Streets in America at that time. It wasn't just Greenwood in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. The company still stands today with assets estimated at $162 million. So that's another quick one that I thought I'd go through. And at some point, if you want me to do more work on to find out more about them and how they did what they did, you know, I can do that, but it's just a time factor I'm looking at. Okay. But we can go into more details. I've got more details. Maggie Lena Walker, you see, there are a lot of Black women who actually did wonderful things around that time. Maggie Lena Walker was the first Black woman in the United States to charter a bank.
It's another Walker.
Sorry?
Yet another Walker.
Another Walker, but I don't think they were related. Because Madam C.J. Walker took her husband's name. That wasn't her name. Her husband was called C.J. Walker.
Yes, very true.
By pooling her community's money, you now notice what happened. They pooled their community's money and they formed the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank, of which she served as the first president. Later, the bank merged with two other banks to form the Consolidated Bank and Trust Company. And she served as the chairman of its board of directors. So again, that's another woman I could do more work on. You know, but again, they're reading their books written about each of these. And once you've seen the recording, I haven't got the actual names of the people who wrote these books, but I've got, you can find that out by just putting Maggie L. Walker, Pioneering Bank and Community Leader, into Google. Another person who was another important person that I see was Arthur G. Gaston. He was a serial entrepreneur who established a set of different businesses across Birmingham, Alabama, in the US. Same place from there Martin Luther King was from. Beginning with a funeral home, as well as a burial insurance company. Yeah, interesting, a burial insurance company at that time. He later established the Citizen Savings and Local Association, and also the A.G. Gaston Construction Company, and also a financial institution called CFS Bank Shares. The question is, where did he get the time? Throughout the 1960s, he was one of the richest Black men in America and was the leading employer of Blacks in Alabama at the time. And again, there's a book about him, Black Titan, A.G. Gaston, and the Making of a Black American Millionaire. I wonder if anybody's heard of this guy, John H. Johnson. Renowned businessman and publisher, Johnson was the founder of Johnson Publishing Company. Anyone heard of him?
I haven't.
I bet you've read his magazines, though.
I was thinking that.
How about Ebony and Jet?
Oh.
I used to read Ebony every single month. I used to go buy it and read everything about the successful Black people in America, the vice presidents, etc.
Yeah.
And he also was the one who published Jet magazine. Yeah, interesting. Originally, he published a book called a magazine called the Negro Digest. It was really a Black version of the Reader's Digest. I suppose many of us have read the Reader's Digest, because I used to read the Reader's Digest for the words, because it had a section on new words every time it came out. And I used to, that's how I learned all my new words. In order to fund that initial venture, he used a $500 loan, $500 that was borrowed against his mother's furniture. Interesting. And in 1982, he became the first African-American to appear on Forbes 400. That is the place to be if you're in business in America. And he was the first African-American to appear on Forbes 400. Currently, the Johnson Publishing Company employs more than 2,600 people and has sales of nearly $400 million. And again, succeeding against the odds. The odds is the book. I think he wrote that actually. Okay. And I've got another guy called Reginald F. Lewis. He was listed on the Forbes 400 in 1992, and he was considered the richest African-American man in the 1980s. And what did he do? He was a graduate of Harvard Law School, a bit like Obama, who founded the TLC Group LP, a venture capital firm, in 1983. He bought the home sewing pattern business, McCall Pattern Company, for $22.5 million and then sold it 3 years later for $65 million. Now that's a clever man. In 1987, he bought Beatrice International Foods for $985 million. That's almost $1 billion. And renamed it TLC Beatrice International. The snack food, beverage, and grocery store conglomerate became the largest Black-owned and managed business in the country. In that year, the company reported a revenue of 1.8 million, making it the first Black-owned company to have more than 1 billion annual sales. Again, something written about Reginald Lewis. Yep. So we've got information about and we can read further about these people, or we could talk further about people like this. So I'm going to come on to Britain now. I've got 2 people to talk about in Britain. There was a third I was going to talk about, who was a big, quite a well-known businessman in the Midlands, West Midlands, but I'm going to leave him until another time, if you don't mind. Right, who's heard of Dyke and Dryden? Come on, you must have heard of Dyke and Dryden.
The hair people, yes.
Yep, there we are.
Did they have a place in Birmingham?
They had yes, they had a place in Birmingham. Right, they were trailblazers who succeeded in building Britain's first Black multi-million-pound business enterprise. Yeah, so they were trailblazers, they were pioneers in this area. And these are Dyke and Dryden. These 2 are Dyke and Dryden, and that's Tony Wade, and I'll tell you a bit more about Tony Wade in a second. They barbershops, hairdressing salons, and some hair nail combo at the moment. It is because of Dyke and Dryden why they exist today. Or Dyke and Dryden opened the way for these organizations, many of them, not all of them. They were loved by the community and served it when no one else would. Because at the time, there were no hair products really for Black people apart from the United States. There were hair products, but it meant importing those to Britain. And Dyke and Dryden came along and they decided to do something about that. Before they came big, Len Dyke and Dudley Dryden sold records and cosmetics. And they did that in Tottenham. And Tony Wade then joined the joint venture and then recommended a focus purely on Black hair and skin products. So as you can see, they used to deal with all the top 20 of records in the old days, Dancing Shoes, Shantytown, you know, all those records that we used to hear from Island Records, etc. in the 60s and 70s. And the 60s, they started out, and this is what they were doing. But Tony Wade came along and said, let's concentrate on the hair product, the Black hair and skin products, because that's the trend at the moment. So they had an amazing growth from Tottenham into other outlets in London, Birmingham, and partnering with local chemists. The team shook hands with notable figures, which I believe included Maggie Thatcher, launched the Afro Hair and Beauty Expo in the 80s, and also created beauty contests and travel services for Caribbean people. And as you can see, this is one of the plaques that's been put up for them. This is a black plaque. You see, there's the black plaque, there's the blue plaque, and there's the red plaque. I need to get into this, find out a bit more. I think the black plaque may be for enterprises, for organizations, whilst the blue are for individuals. The red may be outstanding achievements by individuals. As I say, I'd love to look into that. Okay, so they had all these travel services for Caribbean people, beauty contests were held. They then started importing their goods from places like New York, Chicago, and Atlanta, and they created the network and supplied their UK community. So they were the ones who started importing products from abroad. Before that, there were very few that were importing, you know, products for black hair in this country. The team, as I said, with a deep understanding of what the people wanted, they created innovative products. And the first perm gel ever formulated. Anybody remember the perm? The perm gel. Not the perm gel. Lots of men, particular men and women, used to put that in their hair way back in the 70s, etc. And they developed the UK under the developed it in the UK under the name Super Supreme Curl. So these were the people who produced all those products. Hair fashion was changing, and the trio pitched the idea for a new type of curl to Paul Davis, a manufacturing chemist based in South London and owner of Tor Chemicals. They also developed a relaxing system for the straight look, which got off the ground when Soft Sheen Products of Chicago bought a controlling interest in Dyke and Dryden. It was a success, especially in Ghana, Uganda, and Holland. Many of the niche products on the natural beauty products helped their expansion in East and West African markets. Some of their best-selling products were the Afro combs. They're the ones who used to sell these Afro combs. They started selling these, and they began selling it from in the 1970s as a symbol of pride for the Afro itself. So suppliers originally rejected the idea of having Afro combs, but they were tenacious. The Dyke and Dryden and Wade were tenacious, and they eventually succeeded in having these products all over Britain. Eventually it sold up, they sold up their business and left room for second movers to fulfill the demand. Today, unfortunately, businessmen from the South Asian community are prominent in the wholesale and retail parts of the supply chain. And that's why today we see very few, there really no, I don't know of any black businesses that have really gone into the wholesale market in a big way, because that's the only way you're going to be able to sell products at a price that everybody that can compete with the Asians. They were able to work together. This is some of the things they were able to do. They were able to work together successfully, all three of them. They also added value in local communities, which included supporting lawyers, partnering with chemists, and bringing their friend Tony Wade into the venture. Tony Wade was more of a marketing man, a sales and marketing man. And he said, no market is perfect. Those who win are those who can serve their customers better than anyone else in that market. So into a really good quotation. I'm coming from a marketing background, so I can fully understand that myself. That, understanding and serving your customers is really crucial to success in any market. And this is a book that's been written, How They Made $1 Million, the Dyke and Dryden Story by Tony Wade, with a foreword by Bill Morris. And Bill Morris was the union man who was president of the Transport and General Workers Union, and now he's Lord Bill Morris. Today, many Black-owned retailers don't have much influence on the price because they haven't got much influence on other parts of the supply chain. In other words, the wholesaling and the production. In order to have influence in the retail, you have to have, I'm sure you know that already. I don't have to tell you that. Okay, so Any comments relating to Dyke and Dryden?
I've got a couple of comments. Well, one comment really. From what I remember, when they were starting to, did you say that they sold their business, Linford?
Yeah, they eventually sold their business.
So what I remember from before they sold it was that the products that they were selling weren't. I think there were a few Black people that were saying the products were too harsh for their skin.
Okay.
And I think starting to sort of go off the fact that, you know, we shouldn't be perming our hair and stuff like that.
I don't know exactly why that happened, whether it's because they had the other businesses with controlling interest in their business. And that was one way, the only way they could actually get into the market in some cases, or be able to have some control over production and distribution. So I'm not exactly certain, but this is why this book has been written, and Tony Wade has written it. And I'm hoping to read that book at some point. Any other comments?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear Jonathan?
Great. Yeah, that was really interesting for me. I was just wondering, when you mentioned the Afrocones, does that mean that Dryden and Wade were the creators of the Black Power Fist Afrocone design?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Oh, so I was asking, were Dryden and let's see, Dyke and Dryden, did they create the design where you have the Black Power Fist as the handle for the Afrocone?
I'm not certain about that. I don't know whether they actually designed that. I couldn't actually tell you that.
Okay.
I think maybe that's where reading in the book would probably help. Because, as I say, I've not gone into those details.
Okay.
Well, it's a good question. It'll be interesting. I don't know whether they imported that from America or it was done over here. Yep. And anyone else? Okay, let's move on. We've got one other person to look at, and this is the lady I was going to get to come to talk to have a little chat about what she does. What maybe next year we'll look at it. Anyone heard of Margaret Busby? Well, she became Britain's youngest and first Black woman publisher. Did you hear that? It's Britain's youngest, whether white or Black. She was Britain's youngest and first Black woman publisher in this country. And she's been deemed a major cultural figure in Britain and around the world. She was Ghanaian born, but her family came originally from the Caribbean. Her grandfather, for instance, was at the 1900 Pan-African Conference in London, Mr. Christian. And but they went to live in Ghana, and she came to Britain, and born in Ghana, and came to live in Britain. And she was editor, writer, and broadcaster, and resident in the UK. She was Britain's youngest, as I said. In the 1960s, she co-founded with Clive Allison the London-based publishing company Allison and Busby. Right. She's also a relative of Moira Stuart. She's a cousin of Moira Stuart on the Christian side of the family, her grandfather's side of the family. Yep. While still at university, she met her future business partner, Clive Allison, and they decided to start a publishing company This is while still at university. The first books were published in 1967, making her the then youngest publisher, as well as the first African woman book publisher in the UK. Now, the kind of books that were published, she was editorial director for 20 years, and they published many notable authors, including Sam Greenlee, author of The Spook Who Sat by the Door, the first novel published by Alison and Busby in 1969. They published C.L.R. James, Bukia Macheta, George Lamin, Julius Lester, my namesake, Matthew Sweeney, Jim Murphy, Claire Rayner, Clive Sinclair, Chris Searle, Andrew Salke, Harriet E. Wilson, and Miyamoto Masasu. So they've actually published a whole lot of different people, some of which you would have you know about. Quite a few Caribbean authors there, Andrew Salke and C.L.R. James and where's he gone? And George Lamin. And then you've got some Americans like Julius Lester and Sam Greenlee, and other British, like Claire Rayner, Clive Sinclair, Chris Searle. So, they've published quite a lot. Yeah, and that was subsequently editorial. After 20 years, she became editorial director of Earthscan, which published titles by people such as Frantz Fanon, who's a well-known Black historian, a French Black historian, who's written the book Black Mask. Oh gosh, I've forgotten the exact name. Black Skin, White Masks. Yeah, and then she decided to pursue a freelance career as an editor, writer, and critic. Now, in terms of her writing, as a journalist, she was also a journalist, as I say. She's written for The Guardian, mainly book reviews or obituaries or of artists and activists such as Frank Crislow, August Wilson, Gwendolyn Brooks, one of my favorite poets, Jan Carew, Jessica Huntley from the bookshop down in London. She's written for The Observer, The Independent, The Sunday Times, The New Statesman, and elsewhere for both the general press and specialist journals. They also published, they're also well known across the globe for playing a significant role in supporting the work of authors throughout the African diaspora. Over the span of her career, she has unrelentingly campaigned for diversity in publishing. Now, this is two books that she's published of her own. Basically, it's a compilation, two compilations. One was published in 1992, and the latest one is 2019. And one's called Daughters of Africa, and the second one, which is more recent, is called New Daughters of Africa. And basically what it is, she compiled, it's an international anthology of words and writings by women of African descent from the ancient Egyptian to the present. And it's described by Black Enterprise as a landmark, which includes contributions in a range of genres by more than 200 women. So this is a really interesting piece of work, and it cuts right across the world in terms of African people. She also pioneered African writing, in which they were not simply writing stories about their families, communities, and countries, but they were also writing themselves into the African literary history and African historiography. Yeah. Okay. They claim space for women, storytellers in the written form, and in the same sense reclaim the women's role as the creator and carrier of many African societies' narratives, considering that the traditional storytelling session was a woman's domain. So Busby, as I said, edited this book and the follow-up. And as I say, first published by Myriad Editions in UK, and as I've mentioned, featuring 200 plus writers from across the African diaspora. She's also been a reviewer in the Irish Times, and a reviewer in the Irish Times commented about her New Daughters of Africa. New Daughters of Africa is indispensable because African voices have been silenced or diminished throughout history, and women's voices even more so. She's also been a broadcaster and dramatizer, regularly worked for radio television since the late 1960s when she presented the magazine program London Line for the Central Office of Information, as well as Break for Women on the BBC African Service, and later Talk in Africa on Spectrum Radio. In addition to appearing in a range of different programs like Kaleidoscope, Front Row, Open Book, Women's Hour, and Democracy Now! Her writing for the stage also includes Sankofa and also Ya Asante Warrior Queen. She wrote that for 2001 to 2002, that was performed. And also an African Cargo, directed by Felix Cross. She's also been a song lyricist. In 2014, following the death of Maya Angelou, Busby scripted a major tribute entitled Maya Angelou, a celebration which took place on the 5th of October at the Royal Festival Hall during the South Bank Centre's London Literature Festival. And that was directed by Paulette Randall, who's well known for directing programs such as Barbershop, what's it called again? Desmond's and others, and chaired by Jon Snow and Moira Stewart, her cousin. The celebration features contributions from artists included Ajoa Ando, Angel Colby, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and others. Yeah. Okay, so those are the ones that I thought I'd speak about today, and I hope I haven't gone on too much. So the floor's open for us to talk about anything you want to talk about. Oh, just one other thing about, I've just realized, one other thing about Margaret Busby. In 2006, she got an OB for services to literature and publishing. In 2007, she became an honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. She's had various other awards, including from the Royal African Society. And she was also appointed as the chair of judges for the Booker Prize. And you know the Booker Prize is probably one of the largest prizes in this country, if not the largest in terms of books. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the people I've spoken about. Any comments relating to that? Let me take this off the screen.
I think the first point I'd like to make is clearly the stigma, wherever it came from, that Black people don't work together is certainly wrong. Because we've seen there are groups, not even just pairs, groups of people. And it's worked. Look how successful they've been. So amazing.
Yep.
Really amazing.
That's correct. And as I said, I think that so-called stigma, I mean, I remember a Black guy, well-known Black guy who's in the radio field in Manchester, and he's been on the BBC, has been on also, he even started his own radio station, and he turned around to me and said that Black people can't organize anything. And I thought to myself, that kind of attitude is coming from somewhere.
Yes.
Is coming from somewhere, you know? And, you know, whether we can't work together, we can't organize anything, we're not good business people. There's a whole lot of those things, and it's coming from somewhere. And if you look at history, you can see where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back a long way. And most of this is coming from colonialism, though, not even from enslavement, but colonialism.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting.
It is.
Would anyone else like to say anything? Any comments? Please feel free to unmute yourself. Or put something in the chat if you're unable to.
Hello.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was thinking that right now, with the King Richard movie being out, it would be a perfect time to teach the community more about the pioneers who were facing even greater stigmas and opposition than they're facing now, but they still managed to be extremely successful in business, and they left the ladder down behind them as well.
I'm not certain whether it's me, but I was hearing that very clearly.
Okay.
Just one second. I'm going to put my headphones in so that I can hear a bit clearer.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it was a
No,
bit
no,
fuzzy.
it's okay. Maybe it's me.
No, it's a bit fuzzy for me.
Yeah, but it's an ongoing thing with my phone. That I was saying it's
Okay, go ahead.
I was saying with the King Richard movie, which is out now, it would be a really good time to teach the Black community in general more about the pioneers who came before and had much greater obstacles to overcome, that they still managed to create thriving businesses and even left down the ladder behind them.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And this is partly why myself and Angela discussed this. And we thought we'd have this pilot to see what sort of response we'd get.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
Mm.
How does it make you all feel knowing that these people, what sort of feelings, emotions go through your mind with what you've seen so far over the whole 3 of the sessions?
I'd say encouragement for one. You get that representation where if you see someone who looks like you achieving something, there's less of a barrier for you to try the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Have I put them all to sleep?
No.
No, sorry, I've got my hands full, so it's taking me to get to the mic. I think I'm feeling quite excited actually that we have got all these greats that have come before us, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that that we can repeat what the people before us have done already. I think it's quite encouraging.
Good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Marcia, are you there? Would you like to say anything? Although I think if Marcia was there, she would have popped in. How does so we think it's encouraging. Have you seen any particular parts over the 3 sessions that would make you, that's really sort of stuck in your mind and something that you could apply to your own business today or any other businesses? Any particular points that have come through to yourselves?
Is that to me?
Anybody? Everybody?
One thing that stuck out is buying businesses and selling them again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's quite a fantastic business move, and I'm just wondering whether that's that we replicated from our cousins, or whether that was something that we started ourselves. If that makes sense.
It's an interesting point, that is.
Yeah,
very interesting point.
Yeah, I suppose buying and selling businesses and that's been going on for a long time. Because the first major businesses were started during the 1600s. And they were mainly to do with enslavement.
Yeah.
Because the bank started as a result of enslavement. Yeah. So did the insurance companies to insure the ships. The banks bankrolled the trade between Africa and America as well, because they were trading with Africa long before, even before enslavement started. Yeah. And so the banks were developed for that. The ships were insured as a result. Yeah. Take, for instance, in France alone, there was a population, I think, of 26 million people around the 1800s, early 1800s. And at least 3 to 4 million of those were involved in shipping or the slave trade. It just shows you how important that was. And so lots of companies like the West India Company and the East India Company and all of those businesses were started as a result of that. So even the language that's used today is shipping language. If you look carefully at the way the language they use in the courts and in business, it's shipping language. When you talk about mercantile law, it's all about it's all of this is shipping language, and it all comes from around that time, the trade between Africa, the Americas, and back to Britain and the East Indies. So that has been going on for a long time. But in terms of breaking up companies, I was privileged to listen to a guy in London at an event that I went to. And when I say privilege, it was the first time I heard about people who did this, because I thought there were large organizations that just sold businesses to one another. But basically, when a business is having problems, what happens? They bring in someone like this guy to actually look at what parts of the business could actually survive and what needs to be sold off. And that means they're basically they're company breakers. They break up the company and sell it off. And this guy was a multimillionaire. And these are the people they use to do that. They use so once you become a multimillionaire, you can easily go into that business, as a venture capitalist or whatever you want to call it. It's not my field, but people with more of an those people have more of a background in figures. They need to know how much each element of a business is worth, because remember, many businesses are multifaceted. You've got retail arm, you've got distribution arm, you've got a human resource arm, you've got literally different arms to a business. So each could actually be a business in their own right. And many of them are, because they've got their own managing directors, and then they've got a board of directors with a number of managing directors who report to the chair. So it's a very interesting concept. But as I say, we're looking at people at a more senior level. But what I find interesting is the Dyke and Dryden story and how they were able to start their business Well, they started really with the record business. Well, that was a big thing at the time. Yeah. And they had a record shop. And then Wade came in, Tony Wade came in and said, listen, I've noticed you can make a lot more money and you can do a lot more in our community by going into the cosmetic business. And that's what they did. They went into that and they started wheeling and dealing and, you know, the usual thing that you have to do to be able to make a business work. And that's how it happened. They you know, they had to join forces with others. They had to convince others, but they were tenacious. They just kept on going and going. And if somebody said no, they'd try and find somebody who could say yes, even if it takes knocking on the door 10, 15, 20 times. And that's really what they did. And luckily they had Tony Wade, who was a specialist in that area, in sales. And that's why they had to go to all the chemists and all the shops and whatever to ask them whether they can sell their products. It's a little bit like Nzinga water, Nzinga. That's what they're doing now. They're going to various retail outlets and asking whether they can actually sell their products. That's how it goes. Yep, that's the way the business works. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
I don't know if that answers the question.
The tried and tested thing, isn't it? Knocking door to door. People have been doing it for a long time.
That's exactly it. I've done it. I remember I used to sell Mercury telephones door to door. Yep. And they first of all told me that for every 30 doors you go to, you might get one sale. Which is crazy. I thought to myself, what am I doing? And this was in winter when it was snowing, and I was knocking door to door. But eventually one person turned around to me and said, they can now sell every 9 doors. Because as you get good at your spiel and what you do, you're in a better position to do it. I never got to that point, but I think I was selling about every 25 doors. So it was hard work. It was hard work. But the point is, that is how most business people do it.
Yes.
You know, it's all about tenacity and staying, you know, even when you think it's not going to work, it's about staying the course.
It's true. Marcy would know all about that.
Right, stay the course.
She's not saying anything.
And going around house to house to house with all the stuff that you do with your entrepreneurial mindset.
Oh yeah, my different things: Avon, groceries, soap powders, in times of plenty. I think you draw on that. If you're that way inclined, you do draw on your entrepreneurial spirit, don't you? And just thinking about the Dyke and Dryden story, I was just thinking about my dad when he came to England in 56, and in 58 they were building the M6. So he bought a truck. Right, he bought it on hire purchase because he didn't have money. He's been here 2 years, but he had a haulage where he would take the tar and the dirt to build the road, and then he had other businesses selling chickens, selling Irish moss, and then eventually ended up buying and selling cars. He went to a local car dealer and negotiated to give him a car that needed fixing up. He'd fix it and sell it and keep the money. So that's what he did. Yeah,
it's interesting that there's a guy that's from the West Midlands who I was going to talk about, but I didn't have enough time. He was actually called Prendergast. And he did something similar. He bought trucks and all this, and he had his own construction company in the Midlands. And there were people in places like Manchester who also bought trucks, and they had their own drivers. They had several trucks, and they had their own drivers, and they were doing all that work just like the Irish did.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't familiar with Handsworth growing up, Handsworth in Birmingham, but I went to see, there's a singer, she's emigrated to America now, soul singer, and I went to see her at the Jam House, and she talked about her parents having a uniform shop on Soho Road, a school uniform shop. And you know, and I've heard like there was where the mosque is now, there was chip shop, Jamaican, Caribbean people owned a chip shop, that owned supermarkets, which is all completely Haitian now.
Do you remember Top Pops?
Top Pops.
There were drinks.
Yeah.
There were, Top Pops. Well, the guy who started that business was Prendergast.
Wow.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. You know, Top Pops, we had a Top Pop store in Manchester, and I thought the guy there owned it, but Matt Morris didn't actually own it. He bought into that franchise, you know, so they had it in various parts of the country, and it was all started in Birmingham.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I think, you know, and I think that's the gap for me, you know, the story from 1948 to, you know, to say the 70s, or, you know, even the 80s, because 80s, a lot of people who were making it made it then, do you know what I mean? But up until the 80s, that story of entrepreneurship, do you know what I mean? I think
the funny thing is, I'm looking at Manchester at the moment. I'd like to write a book about all of that, about Manchester. And I first came to Manchester in 1964. And when I came here, many Black people had their own homes that they'd purchased. Many had shops, they had other types of businesses that they were running, etc. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. But at the time in 1964, I never thought that way. It's now I'm thinking that way, and I'm thinking, gosh, at that time, and they all say the same thing. The way that they got all of that was through the partner system.
I was just about to talk about
that. The problem with us is we didn't do the same thing like this lady in America did. Remember the woman who owned the bank? They started by pooling their community's money together. So instead of somebody else is looking at that at the moment, instead of having a partner system where an individual gets a hand, you know, after a certain point, and they can go and buy a house or go abroad or whatever they want to buy a car. What they do is they make it, the businesses, individuals would throw money, and that money would then go towards setting up a savings scheme. You see, which then becomes eventually more than that, it becomes a bank. That's the area we haven't followed in this country, but it's in America they've done that.
That's right. I went to a funeral quite a few years ago, but the gentleman was 98, and in the, you know, when they do the bit where they talk about their life, he come to England when he was 18, and lived in a shared house, but through a partner, and through throwing the partner, he bought a house. But he didn't move into it. He stayed where he was and rented that house, and then kept buying houses and buying houses. He had 4 or 5 houses around Borsal Heath. And I was like, what? In the 50s? I couldn't catch my breath.
Well, I know in the 60s and early 70s, my cousin had maybe about 7 or 8 houses in Manchester. And the funny thing about it, my cousin couldn't read or write.
Does it surprise you?
I'm being serious. He could not read and write. He came directly from the country area in Jamaica, and he came here, and he had about 5 or 6 houses. He had a cafe, and he had several other businesses.
It's amazing.
This is what I'm saying. This is what they did in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, but it's about the mindset, isn't it? And if you can find people that can fill in where your weaker areas are, then that's what part of it is. And again, it's back to delegating and being able to trust people, which is where we struggle.
Yep.
But I think it's also mirroring as well.
Yes,
because these people have come from the Caribbean, where people own shops and houses, and
that's true,
etc., etc. So when they come here, they don't think it's strange to go and do that, because that's what they, like you said, you didn't think it was strange when you saw it, because you're used to seeing
That's
black
right.
people owning stuff. But for our young people, they've never seen that. My grandkids won't know that Handsworth used to have a black school uniform shop or a black chip shop, or do you know what I mean, or whatever else businesses that there was, because it's all
and interestingly enough, I also wrote, there's a dementia organization in Manchester I wrote 4 booklets for. They commissioned me to write 4 booklets, and because it's people who are in the early stages of dementia.
Yes.
And they asked me to write books for Black people who are in the early stages, mainly older people. And I wrote all 4. They were about 20 pages each. But one of them, for instance, was about food when they first came to Britain in the 1950s and early 60s. And it was interesting that some of them had actually come to Britain in the 50s. One of them, I think, one person, they said that had come to Britain around 1954, just when rationing was stopped. So when they first came here, they couldn't get certain things. And so this is why a lot of them ended up living on things like bully beef and all these things, because that's all you could get at the time, you know. And it's interesting because I kept on asking a friend of mine, he's in Manchester, he knows a lot about the history of Manchester, and he's 86 now, he's almost 87. And he basically said, when people first came here, you couldn't get bun, you couldn't get Ardor bread, you couldn't even get condensed milk, you couldn't get sweet potato, you couldn't get yam, nothing like
plantain.
that.
Remember plantain used to be that black thing, because by the time we got here, it was overripe.
So I remember somebody asked me to write a short sketch for a play, which they took 2 of my sketches, and it was part of that play called the Community Centre. And whilst I was writing that, I included that in the actual sketch, you know, and the 2 people were talking in the community centre about what it was like when they first came to Britain. And this guy was saying when he first came, all he could live on, obviously rice and peas were out of the question and all them things. So he said all he could live on was Irish potato. Irish potato. Obviously they knew about carrots and things like that, but you know, our normal food that we were used to in the Caribbean, we couldn't get that. So I always thought to myself, how did they live? It was a lot of the Indians that started bringing in those foods later on, you know. So it was crazy. It must. I'm used to the food that I get in at the moment, but I can't imagine coming directly from the Caribbean and all you eat is Irish potato. You know what I mean? Obviously, they could get rice and things like that, but it wasn't like now you could get brown rice. In those days, it was just white rice. So
my dad said, you know, when they used to go to work and carry the food in that thermos. Right. So they'd warm up, carry overnight food in it. He said when the English people saw rice, they used to go, ooh, maggots. They didn't understand it.
This is it. And this is the point, isn't it? The point is about 95% of the world live on rice. 90% of the world live on rice, when you think about it, because whether you go anywhere in Africa, rice is crucial. Anywhere in Asia, rice is crucial. You know, and yet to think that, you know, they'd look down on it. You know, but as I say, at the time, don't forget the British had been under rationing since the war. So a lot of them weren't getting any real food, any great food, apart from spam. I think Spam and corned beef were two of the
Corned
biggest
beef.
things that they lived on at the time. They couldn't even get cheese. That you only allowed a small amount of cheese, a small amount of meat. Things like ripe bananas was a luxury. It was exotic.
Yes.
You couldn't have things like that. Never mind green bananas. No, I'm telling you, when I was writing that, I just found it so fascinating. That is the way it was in those days.
Amazing.
And yet these people, so many Caribbean people came here. And eventually, I remember the first bakery, there was Mr. Lawford's bakery in Manchester. And we lived just out across not far from there. And we went up the road and there was a bakery and they were baking bun and they were baking hard dough bread and all that.
Really?
Buller cakes and everything, you know.
Wow.
No, it was
Fantastic.
great.
Yeah.
This was 1964 when I came here because I was very
Yes.
much into my bun and buller cakes and
Of
stuff. So it was
course,
nice
yes.
to
Be able to get some.
But people who came here in the 50s didn't have that luxury.
You
know.
I was thinking about Savile Row. I'm thinking about the people that are in extraordinary industries. We've got Boateng in Savile Row.
Yeah.
I can't remember the person's name now. That's in the jewelry court in Birmingham.
Okay.
I think there's some interesting people out there that we're unaware of. I don't know if you know them, Marcia.
The ones in the jewelry.
Yeah, I don't know if there's more than one, but I know there's definitely one. I'm not sure if there are more than one now.
But my friend Dudley's brother had a shop in Savile Row.
Really?
A tailor shop.
Oh
in
my
the
word.
80s, yeah.
Oh really? He actually owned the shop.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Suits and everything.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
Because I was just thinking, even in London alone, I think about my cousins. I got majority of my mum's side of the family cousins. They all come from London, and they haven't gone into any normal careers. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
They work in TV or pharmacists, or do you know things that we wouldn't think, that you could do. And I just know whether it's a London thing.
Well, don't forget people like Bruce Oldfield. Bruce Oldfield still runs his business.
Yeah.
True, and he's in that field. I've got his details here, for instance. I've not even looked at people like Tanya King or.
I saw her Sunday.
This is what I'm saying. Michelle Ogandi. She's from Manchester. She's done these are all business people that I've not even looked at. Yvonne Thompson as well. I've got her here also.
She's done so well. She's done so well, and all English.
There's also another woman called.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's another woman called Valerie Moran.
Moran.
She's of Irish descent. Her husband's Irish. And she's worth about 200 million right now.
Wow.
This is what I'm saying. And these are people, this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of people around at the moment who we don't know about.
That's right.
And so
in Ireland and Scotland as well.
That's it. And we don't always have to look at footballers and sports people, and those are not the only, and the music. It's not just music and sport. We've got people in, we've got to show that we've got people in many different areas.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at team. Look at the amount of people we've got with so many different skills, so many different business areas.
And you know what's really nice now that I'm finding in TG alone? It's not one person. There's no one person that just has that works in one industry. They have other skills and talents, and some of them are starting to tap into it now, which is great.
The interesting thing is that I've got lots of more people for you. And as I said, we can look at all of that. Even looking at America's first black millionaire, we haven't even looked at that guy.
No, we got a chance. The opportunity's coming.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is I'm trying my best to find also people who are not millionaires, but they've still got businesses that they're
Yes.
running and developing.
Yes.
And some people, as I said, this in Manchester, they're the ones who started their own corner shop. You know, we had one lady who was called FEMA in Manchester, who was well known because she was the only black corner shop that I knew of when I first came to Britain in 1964. We all went there to buy our yam and bananas and everything, because most of the people we bought those for in Manchester were Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
But she was black, you know.
And so what happened to her?
I'm not
Well,
too
her
certain.
shop.
I think she died in well, actually, I'll tell you what happened. In Manchester, in Moss Side, we had a clearance. We had a slum clearance.
Okay.
And many of those shops were in the clearance area. And also the houses people had purchased were in the clearance area. And they got nothing for those.
Really?
Yeah, well, they were classed as the local authority don't give you anything for those things because they class it as a slum area. And once they've classed it as a slum area, you get nothing. So many of those people who had bought houses ended up living in council houses later on.
Oh dear, that's sad.
And people who had shops, they lost their shops. And that happened quite a lot. They do that all the time, and they definitely know it's mainly black people that live in areas like that. So, interesting.
It is.
Yeah. So all of that, you know, but I think it's a great thing that we have the opportunity to talk about these people and to be able to, as I said, I like to look at the quality, the personalities of these people and their personal qualities, the things that made them who they are. Because in reality, it's about the individual and the teams of individual that develop that business. That's what really matters.
I agree.
You know, the right mindset, the right skills, and the ability to take consistent action.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's like me. I've been in my business for 6 years now, and I thought after about 6 months, that's it.
Oh, did you?
Know? Yeah. But I just kept on, you know.
Do you keep going? You look at the values, don't you? You look at what it's actually bringing to you.
Yeah.
You know,
that's it.
It's great. I was talking to someone yesterday, you know, about some of the skills that she's got, and you know, when we sat there talking about it, she says, "I forgot I could do that. Oh, I could do this," and I was like, "Yes, you could. Yes, you could." So we'll see how that goes. I won't say too much now because I won't say too much right now.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that there'll be something coming through from her. But anyway, that's another story. So it is 9. It is gone 9. Yep. So any last statements before we go and end this pilot series? Any comment that you want to quickly pass on to Linford or myself? Just let us know what you thought about it. On a score of 1 to 5, 5 being high, what would you give the sessions that you've been to?
So I'll go. I'm going to go in this shortly, but yeah, 5 all the way. I think it's really inspiring. You know, the research is really extensive. I missed Madam CJ Walker. Remember, I was like, I want to hear about her, and I've missed that week. But you know, just hearing that there was other women who inspired Madam C Walker was really, really interesting to hear as well, and the Dyke and Dryden story as well.
Yes,
because I had heard of I don't know what kind of premises they had in Birmingham, but when I was young, I had heard of them. So yeah, so it's good, really good.
Thank you.
More, please.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for your response. Dion, are you able to say? Oh, yes, you are.
Yeah, 5 as well.
5.
Really,
wow.
I've learned so much. Loads of information there, and it'd be nice to actually have a little recap on. Are you going to have a little recap at all of all the people that we've learned about?
Oh well, that might. If you'll have me, what I might do is my next session. If we have a next session in the new year,
Yeah,
I could
that's
use
where we could
that
take
as
it
a
out.
yeah, I could use that as a recap of all three
Yes.
sessions.
Yes, that's the very first session, because as I said, what the plan is, from my point of view anyway, and I'm sure Linford was in agreement, was to take it outside, because look, we've only got 5 of us in total here. There's a bigger world outside of Teams Global of people that would be interested in finding out things like this. So my plan is to put it out there in the public domain and let people, charge for it and let people come in. And that will, continue the extension of people getting to be more aware.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. But anyway, we are at 9:05.
Yeah.
So, and we did say we're going to go till 9 o'clock. It's been absolutely brilliant. The loyalty shown and turning up, engaging, and all of us have engaged. That's wonderful. I recognise that, Linford. It's always good to hear what you have to offer. You're a fantastic historian, and we gain so much from what you're saying. And again, may that last for a long time. And I look forward to doing more collaboration with you in the new year, where we can get ourselves out there and learn and apply it to our own businesses too.
Okay, thank you very much. That inspires me to continue.
Good. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And thanks
So now,
to everyone for listening.
Fantastic. Okay, so now I'm going to stop the recording if I can.